Dear students, in this lecture we'll study how to develop a research proposal in mixed method research. I'm Dr. Ayaz Muhammad Khan. Here is the agenda for this particular lecture. The proposal overview, then the process elements, checklist and best practices. But I would request you to first of all get over my uh, lecture on mixed method research and different designs in mixed method. Then you will be able to understand this mixed method research proposal development in a far better way. The question why most of the proposals of mixed method research often get rejected. The very first one is that we don't know what is the pragmatic paradigm under whose umbrella mixed method research comes. Moreover, we got to keep it in our mind that a research study that combines quantitative and qualitative method to answer a research question is actually a mixed method research. It doesn't mean that simply using the names without rigorous method or having both quantitative or qualitative data. As a matter of fact, we got to complement the result from one research with the results of the second research. I mean, if one part is quantitative and other is qualitative, the purpose should be clearly to draw conclusion based on both of the researches. Either we do it concurrently or we do it sequentially. Okay, students, just a brief overview of the term research. In a derivative sense, the word research means explore. I mean, when we look at the etymology of the word research, it literally actually means to explore something thoroughly and completely. Dear students, research is a creative, critical, and innovative sort of endeavor. You know the weakness of our education system where cramming, rote learning, reproducing things in the same word, I mean, is a fashion of the day. So we are trained less for thinking independently, or creative or critical thinking is missing in our system. So whenever we ask our student to go for some topic, search for some topic, this is what happens to him. Dear students, let's see the classification of research by four aspects. One is application, other one is objective, third is time dimension, and the fourth one is inquiry mode. Let's come to the application mode. By application, we have got two types of research. One is pure basic research, and the second one is applied research. The purpose of basic research is most of the time development of the theory, but the applied research refers to the practical usability of those things in day-to-day life. The second one is objective. We have got three types of researches. One is exploratory, second is explanatory, and the third one is descriptive research. So far as time dimensions are concerned, we know we either get data cross-sectionally, just go once to the sample, get the data and come back, or we go many times to the same panel or cohort for gathering data. Fourth one is the inquiry mode, and we know that this is also called methodology in research, and we have qualitative research methodology, quantitative, and mixed method. In our previous lecture on mixed methods research design, we have already gone through these methods. The very first one is basic mixed method designs, and there are three types of it: exploratory, explanatory, sequential, and then convergent parallel design. Whereas we have also read some advanced mixed method designs, which are embedded designs, transformative design, and multiple design. You can have explanation of all those designs in one of my previous lectures on mixed method research designs. करना कोई भी. I mean, developing mixed method research proposal. Here are some of the steps that are compulsory for writing a research proposal, but you got to keep it in your mind that there are two types of research proposal. One is funded research proposal that has its own prerequisites, whereas degree research proposals, they have their own. Here is a schematic form that shows your pre-empirical stage to empirical stage. When you develop a research proposal, most of the time you write your data in future tense. But when it leads to a research thesis, everything that you write is in past tense. So, a research proposal sets out the broad topic you would like to research, what the research would set out to achieve, I mean its aims and objectives, how you would go about researching it, research methodology, how you would undertake it within the time available. You got to outline the whole plan and what the results might be in relation to the knowledge and understanding in the subject, potential outcomes, especially when you go for your quantitative part. I mean, you got to write what knowledge and understanding already existed and what your research would add to it. A specific declaration of what you intend to do in your thesis or dissertation. It answers three questions, as a matter of fact. What your intent to study, I mean scope and of your research study or your research questions, why this topic needs to be studied, this is the significance most important part of your research. How you intend to study your topic, you would write the whole research methodology as we have discussed earlier, and then you got to give a timeline and where you will conduct this work is the most important part. So the title of your research is the crux of your whole study. I would recommend you to indicate accurately the subject and the scope of the study, and don't try to use abbreviations in the title of your study. Use words that create a positive impression and stimulate readers' interest. Identify key variables, both dependent and independent, especially if it is quantitative part. Is limited to 10 to 15 substantive words. Your title should not be that much lengthy that it creates a sort of fuss. Titles are usually in the form of a phrase but can also be in the form of a question. But in our part of the world, in Pakistan, in subcontinent, most of the people prefer it to be a phrase rather than a question. Use correct grammar and capitalization with all first words.
Dear scholars, quickly scan the following rules, please.
Introduction is one of the important part of our research. Actually, this is the part where you address the question regarding what and why. And you got to keep it in your mind that it should be both brief and catchy. Here are six elements of an introduction. An introduction generally consists of these six steps, and you got to take it into your mind. Element number one, the writer first has to state the broad theme or topic of the study. You can call it about the title of the study. Element number two, once the broad theme or topic has been introduced, its academic and practical importance has to be explained. Point number or element number three, The author next summarizes the available literature and cites the most important previous studies that are relevant to the current research. And if you have done a very good literature review, you will be in a position to write a little bit part of that thing in introduction of your study. Element 4, the author indicates the most important gaps. You got to I mean, give the gaps of the studies, inconsistencies, controversies, so that the research gap may be identified that would ultimately lead to your research. Element 5 of the introduction must always provide a clear indication of the following. You got to keep in mind these 5 steps: the core research problem or questions to be addressed in the study, the specific research objective that will guide your research, the context in which the study will be conducted, and the units of analysis of the study. Now, this is very important part, unit of the analysis of the study. Element number 6 is finally one has to provide the reader with an outline of the structure of the rest of the article. While defending your research proposal in different boards, this question is usually asked that what is the unit of analysis in your research? So you got to keep it in your mind that the unit of analysis is the major entity you are analyzing in your study. For instance, any of the following could be a unit of analysis in a study: individuals, groups, artifacts that may contain books, photos, newspaper, geographic units, towns, census tract, states, social interaction, all those things are called as unit of analysis. Statement of the problem. You got to answer the question: what is the gap that needs to be filled, or what is the problem that needs to be solved? Uh, we would request you to state your problem clearly in the very early paragraph. Limit the variables you address in stating your problem or question so that the focus may be on those particular variables. Consider framing the problem as a question. It all depends on you whether you wish to do it or not. So, in this slide, we'll let you know about research objectives. It is appropriate to include a sentence saying the purpose of this study is under the section. Clearly identify the goal of a study in one precise sentence. And then comes the objectives of the study. The objective of the study will substantiate. You got to keep it in your mind that the stated objective should be SMART, which means specific, measurable, especially in terms of quantitative part, uh, assignable, realistic, and time related. You can use things like explore, the find out, to assess, to measure. And there should always be a logical sequence to your objectives, like to identify a problem, then to develop a solution, to design and implement the solution, and at the end to assess its impact. At the end of your project, actually it assesses whether or not you have met your objectives, and if not, why. Dear student, keep it in your mind that there should always be an alignment of all the research elements, meaning thereby your research objective, then the research question which correspond to particular research objectives, and then a research methodology, how or what sort of method you have adopted, then the research instrument that you would be using for that particular purpose, last but not the least, the data analysis. And you got to be very expert, especially in quantitative part, where you would be running either SPSS or MOS or many other software, that You must know at the very early stage of your proposal that what sort of statistics, whether descriptive or inferential, you would be using. Similarly, you got to have a good acquaintance with the qualitative softwares like NVivo, Prism, etc., etc. There is a statement of relationship between concepts, a roadmap for organizing data and knowledge about the social world. And the word theory, most simply means explanation. It explains how and why something operates as it does. Theory is a carefully constructed set of interrelated concepts, constructs, and statements that explain or interpret some phenomena. One thing, my dear student, keep it in your mind, theories are never proven. They are only supported by empirical evidence. Researchers are constantly challenging and questioning existing theories. The goal of basic research is to develop theory that is supported by empirical evidence, or more precisely, that empirical evidence does not contradict or refute. Theory in a given field consists of those theoretical statements and propositions that have not yet been refuted. Research, which is a critical creative endeavor, either it has to add to the theory or it must have some practical implication as well. So you got to discuss the methodological and theoretical contribution that you are going to make. Try to state the practical or theoretical importance of the problem and objectives of your study, and explain the usefulness or benefits of the study to both the outside world, which will be a practical part, and the research community, which would take your theory and go ahead either to validate it or to refute it through some empirical evidence. A literature review is a written document that presents a logically argued case founded on a comprehensive understanding of the current state of knowledge about a topic of study. This case establishes a convincing thesis to answer the study question. And mind it, the gap also considered the missing pieces in a research literature is the area that has not yet been explored or is under explored. As a matter of fact, for a researcher, the literature review is the most laborious sort of work. The extensive limit that you got to cross, it is really important. This could be a population or sample research method, data collection, analysis, or other research variables or conditions that you would be studying through literature review. These are the 6 steps of literature review. I would request you to get through them one by one in detail, and you may ask different question at the end when you have gone through all those 6 steps. In most of the quantitative researches, we either develop a theory or refute a theory. So, for that purpose, you got to need a theoretical framework. And in order to test a theory, what you need is hypothesis. You people already know that it is a conjectural statement, but very intelligent one. But while you will be developing a theory, as a matter of fact, you would be making certain propositions. So theory testing needs hypothesis. Either you test the difference or relationship. But so far as theory building is concerned, you give logical justification in your proposition or try to give extension to the existing theory, or you try to develop a theory based on particular fundamentals. So here is the difference between hypothesis and proposition in a schematic form. If you just look at this diagram, you see that the general purpose of hypothesis is actually exploring relationship between variables. When we call relationship, it means whether we are going to compare groups by their means, or finding strength or association. And if you are doing one of these, suppose you are going for comparing means, it means that you would explore through your hypothesis the difference, or in case of inferential stat, the significant difference. But if you are going for association, you would go for correlation, and in inferential you would go for prediction models as well. But if we look at the qualitative part, which is propositions, you just need to give description, summarize data, or you would use certain qualitative techniques, I beg your pardon. First of all, I'll tell you the difference between journal hypothesis and null hypothesis. Journal hypothesis or conceptual or theoretical hypothesis, they are sometimes explicitly given, but most of the time they are hidden in your research title, and they are implicit in nature. Uh, but when we talk about null hypothesis, they are the part of your inferential statistics. You go for hypothesis testing. So where there is the element of probability, where there you wish to generalize the results of sample to the whole population, you go for null hypothesis and the probability theory along with your inferential statistics. When you look at the style of quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method research questions, you would explore a difference. I would request you to get over it, and at the end you may ask questions on these topics with me to me. Thank you. This slide contains the difference between hypothesis and research question. Hypothesis is predictive in nature. Conjectural statement, very intelligent guess. But when you look at research question, they are more inquisitive in nature. A hypothesis can be a tentative prediction about the relationship between two or more variables, but the question in a research study, as a matter of fact, sets towards an answer. Research hypothesis can be used if there is significant knowledge or previous research on this subject, but research question can be used if there is a little previous research on that particular subjects. uh, Rest of the things you can read from it. As I have told you earlier, that in quantitative research, uh, you either go to validate a particular theory or refute it. So, you always go for theoretical framework, which tells that what are the demographic variables on which particular studies has been conducted, what are the uh, different people on whom the research have already been conducted, and then you go for the number of variables that has been explored. So when you give it in the schematic form, this is called as theoretical framework. Conceptual frameworks are used most of the times in qualitative design, where in a schematic form you wish to give what has been explored by you, and you can also develop a theory on its basis. As theoretical framework is based on the hundreds and thousands of researches conducted on that particular issue all across the globe, so they are broader in scope, but conceptual frameworks are narrower in scope. Theoretical framework are mostly general, less structured, loosely defined, but conceptual framework are very specific, defined structure. There is hardly any ambiguity. Then, in theoretical framework, it is derived from theories that already exist. But conceptual framework, they are derived from concept specific variable that may be identified in the study itself. Theoretical framework provide the basic foundation for a research study, whereas conceptual framework provide the structure paradigm for a research analysis. Then theoretical framework is the starting point of the discussion, makes readers aware of what follows, but conceptual framework lies in the entire commencement of the study. Methodology or design. This is the most important part in your research project, especially in mixed method research, where you got to tell which design, either exploratory or explanatory design, you are going to follow, or whether your design would be sequential or concurrent. As a matter of fact, whatever you decide must be based on some particular rationale. I mean, if you are going for mixed method design, qualitative, quantitative, sequential design, so you got to listen to my lecture of mixed method research, where I have given a full detail of why and how a particular mixed method design should be adopted. Sample or sampling, in the quantitative part, you might have heard a lot about it. The probability sampling technique for quantitative research and non-probability for qualitative design. As a matter of fact, in qualitative research, now the term sampling or subjects is obsolete. As a matter of fact, we use the term participants of the research in our qualitative research. So, no use of sampling word in most part of the world. But in quantitative study, we know we have probability and non-probability sampling techniques, and at your undergrad level, you have gone through all those techniques very well. Well, let's look towards the instrumentation that we use in quantitative and qualitative designs. In quantitative designs, we may go for questionnaires, opinionaires, rating skills, checklist, quantitative surveys. We can go for experiments and pre and post test. Sometimes we have factual data, objective observations, and emails, exploration of contents, timings, contest, etc. But when we go for qualitative designs, we have open-ended, in-depth interviews, observations, historical evidence, qualitative surveys, focus groups, documental reviews, case studies, and many more things like that. As I told you earlier, that for quantitative data analysis, you got to be well aware of all the data analysis technique. It is better that you go for a particular certification in this context. Statistical analysis in quantitative research, you either go for descriptive or inferential. Uh, in descriptive, it all depends on the type of data, whether it is nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. You make many more decisions on the basis of those things, uh, and as well as the graphs. Uh, in the meantime, if your intent is to generalize the result from the sample, you go for inferential statistics, and in inferential statistics, you have parametric or non-parametric statistics, and you know that if your data is interval ratio and your uh, data that you have collected shows normality, meaning thereby mean, mode, median lie on the same line or very close to one another, you go for parametric statistics. But if these two terms are not meeting and if your data is uh, I mean nominal or ordinal, it is better to go for non-parametric statistics. But when you go towards qualitative data, either you have recorded the talk in the form of interview or observation, which is quite open-ended, and watching different videos, photographs, and different documents. So the strategy to go for analysis is entirely different. You go for coding, categorizing, and then developing themes, and on the themes, you make up your write up. This is very important. You got to give a very clear cut timeline based on particular rationale. For that purpose, you got to consult your advisor, be aware of important dates for submitting and defending dissertations. Do not be overly ambitious, don't be carried away, don't go for such topics which are beyond your limits. Remember, if you would do it, it would cause you a lot of problem. You know, one of the most important thing while developing a research proposal is your time management. You got to put the things in that order. I mean, what are the things which are important and urgent? There are many things which are important but not very urgent, and there are certain things which are not important but very urgent, and there are many things which are not important and not urgent. So you got to prioritize things as per your priority of the research. In this part you got to give time schedule, and as I have told you in previous slide, that you got to be very careful. This is a Gantt chart given by a researcher. It will help you a lot, that you can give a particular time to a particular part of your research, either it is literature review, designs, or development phase, etc. You know, in social sciences and particularly education and psychology and sociology, we go for APA style. So here is a referencing style of APA style. I would request you to get over this slide time and again and try to make your reference as per the criteria of APA.
Dear scholars, quickly scan the following rules, please.
These are the five proposed chapters, but if your university has a different plan, if their distribution of chapter is different, you got to follow it. But as per most of the universities, they follow these five chapters. You can get over the things one by one in each chapter, and while writing a proposal, you got to give at the end that what would be the rationale of your different chapters.